how to say it, a career. How are you, first of all, Daniel? I think that's the first question. How are you? You know, you've been filming a lot, a lot of late nights. How are you, first of all? You must be exhausted.
I'm great. I feel excited to be here. I feel privileged to be at the forefront of crafting culture within Nollywood. And with the way the world is today, Nollywood and African stories are being exported globally. So I'm really excited to be at the forefront of that endeavor.
No, I appreciate that, Daniel. Absolutely, Daniel. Now, being obviously a Nollywood actor and obviously one of the pioneers, it's very hard to be top of any sort of food chain, in any industry, and you've managed to get up there, with all the great Nollywood actors. My question to you first is, how did you start? I don't want to hear the basics of I got up in the morning, etc., etc. I want to know the real understanding. What motivated you? How did you become the man you were today? And when did you do you remember the first time you realized you said, this is what I want to do in my life?
I grew up telling stories. I was the sort of guy that in grade school people would go to for stories during lunch break. I was that guy that would gather friends together and narrate movies that I'd seen over the weekend and over the holidays. And that saw me into like performance courses in high school. Although I was in the sciences, I was always in like debating societies and like drama clubs and stuff like that. And every opportunity I had, I would act. But I found myself in the engineering, oil and gas industry in Nigeria. So what happened was I had two lives. I was living two lives. I had a 9 to 5 where I was an oil and gas engineer, and after hours I would go to open mic performance events. I would go to sets to visit my friends, and then one day I decided to make a choice to choose between engineering and the arts, and I chose the arts. I quit my job and threw myself full time into the entertainment industry.
Was you scared, Daniel? Because what I mean by that is very simple. Obviously, you had decided that you had a 9 to 5 job, and at the same time, when it comes to acting or presenting or any sort of modeling in arts and entertainment, there is no safety net. Either you make it or you don't. Was you worried at that point, or did you realize, hang on, this is a very risk that I have to take, but in order for me to do it, I have to make it work?
Oh yeah, it was really scary. I mean, first of all, like the first time I attempted that, I told my family members, and they thought I was crazy, and they said, "Don't do it. Stick to engineering, stick to your 9 to 5." And then the second time I tried it, I didn't tell anyone. It was scary. It was it was really walking on water. I was stepping out of the boat and walking on water, and I took the bold step and damn the consequences, and it paid off.
Brilliant, fantastic. Do you and also Daniel, in terms of you as an actor, when it's like riding a bike, for instance, when you do it so much, you end up just doing it for a job. Do you still love what you do? Or are you in a position where you do it because, yes, let's just be straight and honest. Money's great. Even my job, money's great. And that actually motivates me. But are you still in love with the passion in deep down inside?
That's a great question because it started off as passion, and then it became to make money. It became, almost a chore. But I found an outlet. I found an outlet in storytelling. I found an outlet in filmmaking, which really was my first love. I found acting along the way. But my first love was in filmmaking. And when I started to make films, started to tell story again, like my film, The Herd, that is on Netflix, that I made, that came out last year, I found it as an outlet for surviving the mundane world of acting, as it were, of Nollywood acting. So that was the panacea for me for bringing life, bringing life back into the creative for me.
And obviously, acting also comes with looks. You clearly are, a very handsome man, and you've got the physique for that. Did you not think at some point when you were looking at saying, well, yes, Nollywood is a fantastic achievement, but also in order for me to move forward, maybe what about Hollywood? Did you ever have that aspirations, or are you still at that point where you might actually go into Hollywood?
Oh, well, we all start off with that dream that one day we'll be in Hollywood, one day Hollywood will come knocking. And I did travel to LA, met with a few agents at the time. But what I realized was that I'd rather be a king. You know how great David and Solomon were in the days of the great kingdom of Israel, or in the Bible, and then many people came to seek them. Many people sought after them, rather than going into all the nations to pitch yourself. So I had a sort of like change in paradigm, and I thought to myself, rather than going to Hollywood and knocking on doors and waiting tables, waiting for great big chance, why don't I build myself up, create a table like Tyler Perry is doing, create a table for yourself and wait for the kings and queens of the world to come to you. So that's what I decided to do. That Hollywood will come knocking someday, but build your own table first. Build your own career, build your name, tell your stories, your great stories that will travel the world, like the herd is doing currently. That was it for me. I re-strategized that, and I'm glad it's paying off.
I'm going to go more deeper into this conversation. Clearly, you are very articulate, and it's great to have this discussion with you. Now, obviously, as you know, and let's just be direct and honest and straight. Uh, Segregation is everywhere. As we know, Hollywood has their own sort of people. Bollywood relates to Indians. Nollywood is relating to Africans. Does that upset you in some point that the world is now, even though at the same time, yes, at the same time, these all industries are equally good. But do you think there is an issue that we have where we have Nollywood, Bollywood, and Hollywood, and it clearly segregates in terms of cultures and people and identities?
Well, it's a two sides of a coin, really. I don't see it as a immediate problem. Is what you do with it. Take for example AI. AI is not a problem, but what you use it for, what comes out of it, or what then becomes, or who handles it becomes a problem. I think people put things in categories, or sort of like segregate culture to understand it better. The Indians have Bollywood because culturally they find a niche for the industry in that regard. Nollywood because it's niche, Hollywood because it's in America. But I think what happens is stories travel. Stories travel and people collaborate across board, and you have filmmakers in Nigeria who collaborate with filmmakers in India or in the US, and vice versa. And culture can permeate, stories can permeate culture in that regard. So when you have a story that travels, or stories that finds application across board, then we can have a coming together of the different industries. But of itself, I don't think it's problematic. But it's when you try to keep it that way, or you try to resist change, or try to resist a coming together of creative voices, or coming together of stories. That might be where the problem lies. But of itself, I don't think it's a problem.
But do you think there should be room for improvement, Daniel? Obviously, you are a pioneer. You obviously are a filmmaker, and at the same time, you understand you have that lens. Do you not think there should be room for improvement in terms of
Absolutely.
industries coming together, knowing that we're not having to segregate each other?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think moving forward, I think that's where the future is really, because you have, for example, Hollywood licensing African stories and telling African stories. The Children of the Blood and Bone is one recent example, and there's a movie called Namaste Wahala, I think is on Netflix, which had Nollywood and Bollywood stars coming together. I think that's the future, coming together of the different industries and telling stories that cut across the different industry. That's the future, and I think that's the way to go moving forward.
You spoke about AI. Well, I want to get more into deep in terms of your depth and your ideology and also your intelligence in terms of AI. Tell me what's your thoughts first of all on AI. Are you worried, Daniel? Are you worried that films don't necessarily have to have humans in the future? They will end up taking, jobs for actors who are not very well known. I mean, you've obviously done extremely well in your career that you've managed to build a profile, but some people are not very as fortunate as you are. Are you worried about that?
To be honest, I am. I am because it's a world I'm not very familiar with, and and when that world is coming into your space, you'd be apprehensive somewhat. So I am worried a bit, but I do also understand that there are certain things AI cannot replace, and the more we go into authenticity and originality of our voices and our creative expressions, the more difficult it is to be replaced. I do know that there are certain jobs currently that AI can do, and there are others that AI cannot do. And if you do a very good study, you realize that AI can only use what exists, to create to create something novel. So it takes what exists and creates something novel. What AI cannot do is to create something that has never been done before, something that has never existed before. AI cannot pluck something out of nowhere, but we can. The human mind can. The human being has the ability to pull stuff from the zeitgeist, to pull stuff from the ethereal, to create what has never been created before. And that's where I believe storytellers and creatives can situate themselves so that they are irreplaceable. But you can use AI as a tool. You can use AI to help you in your craft. But the more you go into yourself and you master yourself and you become one with the way you were created by God, I think it becomes very difficult to be replaced by AI.
Are you pro AI? I mean, do you not think, in your opinion, that AI can be a very dangerous situation that people can now take AI into the wrong hands? I mean, are you not worried, Daniel, in that perspective, that actually AI can be great, but also it can also be very bad as well? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think my take is that human beings have to be worked on. So it's my duty as an artist to create work that makes human beings better people, that makes us better people. The better we are as people, the less of a danger AI is. But the worse we are, the more dangerous human beings are and the way they think, the more dangerous AI becomes. In of itself, AI isn't the problem, it's people and the way they use AI and the freedom they give AI, and the what's the word now? The messaging that goes into the AI is what I think the problem is.
I want to go more deeper into you, Daniel, because clearly you are a very interesting character. Who are you? Besides all the acting, the great film work that you do, the awards that you've done, your 1 million subscribers on Instagram, clearly you've done extremely well. But behind all of that, and behind my life and behind everyone's life, everyone has a character they have at home, which they don't allow people outside to see because obviously, end of the day, it's a brand, and we are business people. But at the same time, obviously, we're different people at home. Who are you besides this actor as a Daniel?
Well, I would say that uh, I'm a storyteller at heart. I'm a man who loves to inspire people. First, my family, and then my close group of friends, and then the world at large. I believe so much that we have been blessed of God and put on the earth for such a time as this for a reason and for a purpose. I'm a man who believes in a God given purpose to be here on earth. And as long as I live, I'm on a journey to uncovering and discovering that purpose and living it out. I love to help people. I love to inspire people. I love to be a blessing to everyone around me. I think we have love. We've God has put love in our hearts to share in a world that needs love, in a dying world, in a sick world, and the more every day we live on earth is an opportunity to spread the love of God everywhere we go.
You speak about God. I'm also very religious as well, and I pray as much as I can every single day. Yes, I do have my demons and at home, and sometimes I do have my downfalls that I need to improve. What's your thoughts on spirituality? Do you think that has made you as a better individual, or do you think you have been implemented when you were younger from your parents to pray or be religious, or do you think that's helped you shape your character?
I think everything is spiritual. Life is spiritual. But I also know that I've been socialized in a certain way over the years by my parents, by society, by the church, but I think every human being has an opportunity in their life to come to a place where you decide for yourself what you want to believe. Are you going to believe in institutionalized religion? Are you going to believe in religion as it was handed over to you by your parents or by society? Or are you going to seek God for yourself and seek out faith and spirituality for yourself and go on a journey of self discovery and finding out who you are, why you're here for such a time as this, and who is out there? And I think I've been on that journey for myself. I started fairly recently, and I'm liking what I'm seeing and discovering. And I think I encourage everyone to go on that path for himself.
Tell me about your struggles. I want to know. No one becomes an actor in Nollywood at the top of the food chain. No one gets to a place where you, yourself, Jim Ike, or it's a Yoha, etc. You clearly have elevated to the top, but at the same time, being an actor, you must have had struggles. Tell me about them struggles. Did you sleep in a car for a period of time? Did you sleep on your friend's sofa? Obviously, nothing came to you overnight. Tell me about them days.
To be honest, I didn't have the usual struggles because, like I said, I was in oil and gas. And the real struggle for me was a personal struggle, inner struggle of, how to quit this comfort of this world, of a 9 to 5, of security, of pay, and then throw yourself into the uncertain world of entertainment. That was the struggle for me. I did, I did. I mean, I'm from a middle class family, so it's not like I'm from super wealthy family. I'm from a middle class family, but we believed in certain principles. And my dad, who was in the army, raised us, myself and my siblings, a certain way. Right? We believe in honest labor. We believe in growth. We believe in process and principles. So I did go through the process of, high school, university, and if you schooled in a government university, federal government university in Nigeria, you will know that it was a hassle. It wasn't an easy ride, especially when you're doing a course like engineering. So I went through all of that, struggled through all of that, and graduated with a solid degree in engineering. To quit all of that was the struggle for me, to abandon engineering, abandon your 9 to 5, and then go into entertainment was the real struggle. And when I did that, the early days, my first job as in oil and gas was no, my first job in entertainment was as a content producer at a at an online platform called Danny TV. So I did get a 9 to 5 at my first job in entertainment, and I got fairly good pay. So that was my beginning, and then after that I went on to start to get acting gigs and filmmaking gigs. I went to South Africa to study film. I was in South Africa for 4 years. After my studies in South Africa, I went on uh, to produce and direct TV commercials. So I would say my journey wasn't the usual, struggle through auditions and stuff. I had maybe a soft landing, as it were, and then my path now took me to TV commercial making, which is fairly highly lucrative in Nigeria. And then I became an actor. through referrals. Through referrals, someone said, "Oh, consider this guy." Then I got the job, and then someone saw me on that gig and was like, "Oh, brilliant! I want you to be in this as well, and in that and this." And that's how I grew my career.
You talked about education, and we will talk about you being from a middle class family and super rich. But we will talk about that. But I also want to talk about education. Do you think education is a necessity?
Absolutely. I think education is a great leveler. It gives you a solid platform on which to build on. It's Formal education isn't everything, but it's a solid foundation to start life on, to start building. It gives you access. It gives you the tools of which you can then use to build wealth and build opportunity for yourself.
Now, in terms of you speaking about coming from a middle class family, obviously there's going to be many people. I mean, my family are from Iran, from India, etc. There's always, even in the UK, there's people that are rich and people that are not so rich. You obviously fall into the fortunate, but some people are not as fortunate as you, myself, and other people are who necessarily have the finance behind them. What advice would you give to a young Nigerian actors who come from villages who are not very privileged, who cannot afford X, Y, and Z, for them to fulfill their dreams, for one day they can escape the situation they've been put in to benefit their life?
Well, I'd say trust the process. Process is important, but also apart from the process, everyone gets an opportunity, to step out or step up. Everyone does get it. Everyone does. What you do with that opportunity now distinguishes you. So trust your process. Be bold when you get your opportunity and throw yourself into it. Um, and I would say trust God. There's always that God factor in it. I, there are certain things in my life I can explain. There are other things I cannot explain, and I would credit God for those things. I don't know. There are times in my life where I've made a quantum leap. I'm going this way, and then I just leap. And there's no explanation for it other than the fact that I just got some providential push. Some hand of God somewhere directing the affairs. So trust God, and that God has your back, and then do what you must do. Follow the process. Build yourself from the ground up, and be bold about taking advantage of the opportunities.
I'm going to pick your brain a bit more about filmmaking. You obviously are a fantastic filmmaker, and I want to know what's inside your brain when it comes on to you making new films. Where do you get your ideas from? And when you're on set with these actors, how do you know when you want to cast these actors, they are humble and they don't come from places where they come with arrogance or egotistical? Obviously, ego is in everyone. It depends how you nurture it. But how do you know you've recruited the right actor to make that person successful? And also at the same time, where your film ideas come from, where do they come from?
So, filmmaking is a lot like leadership. Many of your decisions are um, come from your gut, are instinctive. As with a lot of things um, when it comes to leadership. But first, my stories come from the life around me. I'm a great observer, so I spend a lot of time just watching and observing and reading in between the lines and taking a lot in. And in digesting life and everything you encounter, you find certain things that are quite important or that resonate with you and that intrigue you. And you want to build a story around that event or that thing, that has tickled your fancy or has stuck on your mind. There are certain things that we as filmmakers um, generally gravitate towards. That's why you see certain filmmakers making themed films. It's films about certain things like uh, M. Night Shyamalan will make films about the supernatural year after year or time and time again because he's fascinated by that. So you want to ask yourself as a storyteller or filmmaker, what fascinates you? What it tickles your fancy? What, gets stuck on your mind again and again? And you want to tell stories about that because that's where That's where your fascination lies. So that's where I get my stories from just musing about life. And then working with actors, a lot of it is instinctive. You get stories and by dealing with people and just speaking with people. And because I'm an actor myself and I engage with actors a lot, I sort of like know from a sixth sense who will best portray a certain character well, and although the studios come in and the executive producers come in and we have a tussle and we have a conversations about who's best for what role, for the studio, for the investors, they're best protecting their investment. The studios want stars and stuff, but in the end, is what serves the story, and everyone has to go with that.
They say also, Daniel, they say, people that are very successful or are successful, regardless what industry they're in, sometimes people are not as happy as they want to be because they're always pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until they don't realize actually they've accomplished what they have. But sometimes we forget in the presence of how far we've gone, but we don't appreciate it. Are you happy, Daniel? Are you internally happy with yourself? Or do you still feel, have you still got something missing inside of you that you need to prove?
I quit engineering to do film, and with that came a lot of fear of failing. So at the back of my mind, I have this thing that constantly pushes me, that fear of failing or that fear of not um, meeting up to the potential that I could have been if I had stayed in the oil and gas industry. So to be honest, I'm driven by that. I'm driven by that desire to be all I can be and make it big because when I was quitting, everyone was shocked and they were like, really, dude, you're going to quit engineering? You're going to quit the great oil and gas industry to be in films? And I was like, yeah, because I believed in fulfillment. I believed in doing what you're being called to do. But along with that comes a drive to want to prove every naysayer wrong, to want to prove everyone who laughed at me then that, hey, got you, I did good, beyond that, I find that you must be happy with your process, and fall in love with the process rather than a destination. So, at the back of my mind, I'm acutely aware that it's not about a destination because at every point there's always a further point, but to find fulfillment and satisfaction with your growth and with movement and with the process rather than a destination.
It's a great thing that you said there, Daniel, and believe me, I listen to everything that when someone tells me. When it comes to failure, and you said, you're scared of failing. Failure is a part of life, but obviously to be successful, you have to be scared of it in order for you not to go down that road. Do you feel that you are at a place where you need to get higher, or are you content, Daniel, in what you have, or do you want more?
Oh, I want more, definitely. There's so much more ahead of me that I see. There's so much more that I see. There's so much I believe I have the potential for, and there's so much yet to come from me.
What's going to take you? Now, this is a very honest answer, very straightforward answer. Sorry, very straightforward question, and it might be humorous to you, but it might be humorous to other people. But I don't think it's humorous. What's it going to take for you to win an Oscar? What's it going to take for you to win a BAFTA? Have you prepared your plan, Daniel? Are you prepared for the next step now?
Well, on paper, I have a slate of 5 films, right? That I believe, if done to the level I believe they can be done, I might be in contention for something. Um, and the and the goal is to keep pushing yourself until that is done, and until that is done, I do. Well, I'm not doing the work that I'm doing for external validation or to be validated by the Oscars or the BAFTAs or something. No, but I do believe that when you do honest work that is global, you should be celebrated. My last film got 9 AMVCA nominations. The AMVCA's are a version
Amazing,
of a version of the Oscars. The Herd,
amazing.
And that's my first film. It got 9 nominations. So I really think that if I do a second, third, or fourth film, it should get a nod internationally if done well. And film is a very collaborative effort. So I just need to get all the right pieces together for that to happen. But it's in the works.
You must have traveled all over the world, and you've probably seen lots of things. As you know, like you said before, coming from a family that have supported you financially, at the same time also you've stood on your own feet and become the man you are today and earned the life that you've earned. Now, obviously, as you know, segregation. I want to go back to more segregation because I believe there is a topic that needs to be discussed because people don't talk about it. In Hollywood, there's only so many black actors, Indian actors, Mexican actors. There's more white actors compared to black actors. Now, obviously in Nollywood, like I said before, it seems like they've marginalized people. And I'm a man of skin color. I'm a man of color. So I understand what it's like, especially being a British Asian journalist, not just a British journalist. A British Asian journalist has to put Asian in there. And that infuriates me. What do you think? Do you ever think we will get to a place where the white people and black people will end up coming together and not having to worry about being judged on skin color anymore?
That's a very difficult question to answer, to be honest, because I mean, this is 2026, and we still have people not being able to make the World Cup because of their skin color or because of their nationality. This is 2026, and we still have raids in certain places, and people are still being profiled because of the way they look, and increasingly that sort of politics is increasingly becoming popular, and people are riding on that sort of sentiment to build of one's character rather than the color of one's skin. That's what I'd like to see the future as. But it's scary because from where I stand and from what I see, um, it's looking very bleak. It's looking like to be, and it's not just in the West, it's also in Africa. In South Africa, we have Africans who are saying Nigerians and Ghanaians and Zimbabweans and other Africans must get out of the country because they aren't South Africa. This is black against black xenophobia. So it's crazy, really, that that is going around. So it's not just in the US or in Europe, but also in Africa. So that sort of sentiments of segregation and othering is picking up speed, where I thought in 2026 it would be decreasing and it would be a shameful thing to even speak or run a ticket on. So I think we have, as creatives, we have our work cut out for us, that um, it becomes a task to reflect um, such crazy mindsets or such crazy worldviews in our art, and to contest it and to deconstruct where that kind of thinking and that kind of fear comes from.
What's more important to you, Daniel? I want to know. I want to go more into your personality. Money or family?
Family. and
And
and yeah, and this is why, right? This is why, because you know um, I'm a family man myself, and I'm not saying money isn't important, but what is more important was your question. Put and I see the reality in my day-to-day activities because I'm having to go out there to chase money every single day, but I'm constantly reminded by my wife that you have a family back here. Don't get caught up with work that you fail to cut out time for your family, cut out time for rest, cut out time um, to play with the kids and have time with the kids, because these things are more important, than going out there to work every day. Yes, work is important, but family is more important.
tell me about your latest ideas and films that you're working on for our viewers and people to understand what you're doing right now mentally and where you are working on right now that you think that will explode? Not something that you do that you know that will just go to cinema, maybe Netflix, fine. With something that you think that will be something great that will represent Nollywood in an international level.
So I'm working on a story that I think is very interesting. I'm making a screen adaptation of my father's book. My father was my father was in the Nigerian military, and in the 80s, he was arrested and put in prison and accused of plotting to overthrow the government. And he was put in prison, and he was sentenced to die by firing squad, you know, and that sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. I was one when that happened. And several years later, my mother was going to visit him in prison, and she had an accident and she died. And that threw my entire family into chaos and confusion. You know, in Nigeria, they say when Nigeria happens to you, that's sort of things. They say Nigeria has happened to you. I mean, that happened in the 80s into the 90s, and I grew up under that sort of cloud, over the family. Fast forward several years later, I'm doing my research, my master's research in orthoethnography, and I have all these materials all this material on my father and his story because I'm using it for research for my film. And tell me how in the middle of that the government announces, because first my father was released in the 90s, but he was not granted presidential pardon or anything, right? He was just released, but he had that dark cloud over him with all that history and everything. And tell me how, in the middle of doing that research about my father, about my life, because it was an autoethnographic study for my master's, the government announces a presidential pardon, and my father was granted his presidential pardon. His rank and entitlements were restored, his gratuities, everything over the years, all the arrears was paid to him. So it was this great event that happened to him right in the middle of me, surrounded by all these materials about that time. And for me, it was like full circle. And it happened the exact year that I was when that my father was. I was the exact age that my father was when that happened to him. I don't know if you clocked that. I was when I was right doing that study. I was at the age my father was when that event happened to him. So I thought to myself, "Wow, this is so uncanny. Why don't you do something with all this material?" So, alongside doing my master's research, I was adapting his book into a screenplay. And I adapted because my dad did write a book about his ordeal. All right. And I adapted that into a screenplay. And I had that screenplay. But I think now I'm ready to make the film. So I'm in the process of we're doing rewrites, and we're also sourcing for funding for the film. And I do believe that I'm going to play the character. I'm going to play my dad's character, and yeah, I think it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful story. I'm having lots of people who are interested in coming on board the project, and I think it's going to just blow everyone out of the water.
I'd like to give you a suggestion as well, Daniel. I mean, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not an actor. It's not that I'm not intelligent enough. I just don't think I have the patience to be able to sit there and learn lines. It's very difficult. But I'd like to give you a suggestion. I don't know if you remember the Danny Boyle film against Slumdog Millionaire, where he made that film, and it was very reality about India and how India was. Do you not think maybe in your next film where when you can sit down and say, you know what, I want to showcase the real Nigeria, not the Nigeria where we fall in love and we have these dancing films and people are very eccentric, maybe something to show the real Nigeria, because end of the day we only see Nigeria, Lagos and Abuja when people from citizens, they come around the world to go to these conferences, but they don't actually know the Nigeria, what the people really like. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, to be honest, I think there's no one way to look at a place. There was Slumdog Millionaire. There was also, I think the film is Rich Crazy Asians as well. So you can put
Mhm.
your lens anywhere and capture reality, really. Reality from above, reality from below, it's all still reality. And, one would like to see a reality where you see the slums and you see, the dirt and you see the traffic of Lagos and, all the cacophony of horns blaring and street urchins and all these things. Yes, great. There's another reality of the high and mighty in Lagos and the nightlife and the beautiful Lagos and the beaches and the skyscrapers and the wealth and the flashy cars and the short skirts and the eyelashes and the weaves and all these things. That's another reality. So I think I go with the stories and where the stories take me. If the story takes me down to the bottom, I'll go down to the bottom. If the story takes me high up there to the mountains, I'll go high up there to the mountains. So I go with the stories.
Now, obviously, you've had your first experience. Well, not you've had a very devastating experience where your father was locked up, and he was accused of something that was out of terms. And obviously, when it comes to you and your family, you must have been very devastated. What happened to your father? Now, in terms of Nigeria, what do you think, in your opinion, that needs to improve? Because obviously, so you are from Nigeria, you understand the concept, the culture. What do you think Nigeria needs to improve on furthermore down the line while the years go beyond?
Wow, that's a really difficult question. I think we need to go back to the basics. We need to go back to
Hmm.
microwave generation of quick money, scamming people to get paid where you haven't worked, um, transactional relationships, um, easy money. I think we're caught up there, and lots of young people are in that bubble. But the reality is that honest work pays. And to build something that is long lasting, it will take time and it will take laying the foundations and the bricks one after the other. I think we need to fall back. We need to fall in love with that again. I think we need to, and maybe we used to be like that, maybe in our parents' time, but I think something happened to us that truncated that whole process, and people just started to want to get rich overnight, and it just, it just became this daze that bewitched an entire nation. But I think we need to shake out of that and go back to the place where
You obviously have the platform, Daniel, that you can change somebody's life in Nigeria. And obviously, I know there's only so much one man can do, because obviously, at the end of the day, casting somebody is takes time. You also got to be that person's got to be reliable, honest. He cannot be a fool. He has to be some sort of intelligent to understand what he's doing. How do you not know, Daniel, when you walk down the street in Nigeria, that you walk past somebody who, or you've seen someone that has come from a very rough background or very uneducated background that deserves the success that everyone else does, because everyone's entitled to be happy, but it depends on the people that lift people up. Now you have the platform. How do you know that you not have walked past someone who could be the next huge star in Nigeria, and accidentally you walked past him and didn't realize? Have you had them days before where you thought that young man or that young boy could be the next star in my film? Mm, 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 mm. Do you get asked a lot? Do people ask you a lot, Daniel? Do people ask you a lot for help or support? And my last few questions, Daniel, I'll let you continue your day. In terms of, I'm going to ask you an intelligent question actually. Do you think that you are at a place where I know we've spoken about you being content or wanting more, because that's obviously ambition, and that's being ambitious to continue pushing forward. But do you think there's going to be a time where you are going to say, enough is enough? I've done what I can. I'm going to now pass the buck on to someone else to continue forward. Mm. Absolutely. And my last question, difficult one. You've mentioned that you came from a middle class family that was super, well, in terms of wealth, and you had the support financially and also the support of mum and dad. Some people are not, don't have that capability. If you was in a position where you didn't have anything to start with, where mum and dad were also suffering the same time as their family, do you think in your opinion you would have the same confidence or the same ability to be at a place where you are top of your food chain? Or do you think what would you have learned on the way up by being a filmmaker, by being an actor? Do you think your life would have been different, or do you think it would still been exactly the same as you are today? Last question. Visionary. Obviously, as a visionary, you have to know where you're going to be in the next 5 years. Can you honestly tell me where you're going to be in the next 5 years? Because they say manifestation is part of it. Daniel, thank you very much for talking to me. Really appreciate your time. And it was a real honor to have a conversation with you and have a real deep insight into the character who you are. And I'm so honored to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your time. Thank you. Give me 1 second before I go. 1 second. Let me just close this.